in the roll book for bonus points for the students as well. Ms. Baker is going to talk to you guys about the process for your interim assessments at this time.
So the interim assessments we will give the week of the 18th. We'll start on Tuesday the 19th and Wednesday. It was suggested in order for you guys to test your own subject area that each day you give one session. So for example, one homeroom you'll do ELA, math, switch, and then give your content area to the second class that you teach. And we'll do that Tuesday and Wednesday. The Wednesday is early dismissal day. We have parent-teacher conferences that afternoon. So just be mindful of that. You may need to adjust your schedule so that you can get those. But the suggested times for the LEAP interim assessments, you should have plenty of time that morning to go. And also just a side note about parent-teacher conferences, we know that we're getting towards the end of the year. I've talked to some of you guys about promotion in jeopardy. This is the time that you need to be meeting with those parents and getting those required signatures for any students that you have concerns about moving to 4th grade.
And there must be 3 signatures. So however you get them, if it's on that parent form or if it's on that jacket that the report card goes in, we need 3 signatures.
And what about the ones that are for attendance, for welfare and attendance?
I think that the person, he comes out at the end, toward the end of the year, and he has a discussion with myself and the guidance counselor.
So that counts the one that we sent home?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, so in our leadership meeting on Fridays, we discussed some of the things that we see as we walk through, like just look fors or just some of the things that we notice. And so we always talk about what we notice, and we noticed pacing a little bit off, and we did put in our newsletter that we wanted to talk about pacing this week. And so Ms. Baker was able to find a really great article on pacing. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through the article and kind of have like a round table. I know you kind of see sports people that kind of have like conversations just on an educational basis or what people may be doing in their classes in certain areas. And so when we get to the bolded areas, we'll let one of you guys read, and then we'll all kind of share out some points or what we gather from our reading. So I'll let Ms. Baker go ahead and start off with just the first part.
Okay. So we know how important pacing is, and we've had a lot of discussions this year with our new Tier 1 curriculums and getting everything we want to teach within the allotted time that's given, and it's been an issue that we've discussed many times. And so with this article, I thought it was really good. They have some really good points and some ideas on how to pace our lessons. So the first one is create a sense of urgency. And of course, at this time in the school year, that's something that's on all of our minds. So Ms. Justice, if you will read the first, number 1, create a sense of urgency, and you guys can highlight, underline, jot down any thoughts about this, what it looks like in your classroom, questions you may have about how it can look differently in your classroom, and we can brainstorm some ideas to share.
Okay. Number 1, create a sense of urgency. The true art of pacing lies in creating a sense of urgency and also not leaving your students in the dust. Think diligent pace, but not frenetic. This pacing feels just right to most learners in the room. Using a timer on your desk, or try this one, can help create that we're on the clock feeling, and while moving steadily ahead, providing ample think time along the way. If a teacher question is asked of the whole group, don't expect an answer the first 2, second, or 2, or 3. Count to 5 when asking those particular challenging questions. Sometimes we need to slow down in order to move the learning in the room forward.
Okay, so just going back to create a sense of urgency, what now does that look like in your classroom, or what concerns, what are your thoughts on that?
I want to, you want to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to start off by saying, too, that I think we've done a really great job of ability grouping our students so that we can kind of gauge the pacing of how much we need to give to our students. So we have our mastery, advanced, and basic students in one class, and we know that we can kind of speed up the lesson and keep it on a regular basis, whereas we have our unsatisfactory and approaching basic students where we know it may take a little bit of time. And that was one of the things that Coach brought out when we were talking in our leadership meeting about just the whole pacing of a lesson. He was saying, like, with that blue group, he feels like he has to take a little bit more time with them, and so the pacing may seem off, but at least we know that we have adjusted our pacing for those possible students that can speed a little bit ahead. And I'll let you guys go.
I was just gonna comment that my pacing is different now based on the season.
Okay.
It's crunch time, I'm trying to cover more. So in the morning, I am doing a review based on something that we gave the day before. So like right now, we have the testing coming up for next week. We've been pushing a lot of fractions. So each night they've had a different homework assignment, whether it's comparing fractions, whether it's fractions on the number line, or equivalent fractions. In the morning, we're going over that, we're pushing that. With my first group, being that they're higher, I can get through both homeworks because we had all hands on deck. We did that this morning just to push, the emphasis there. Then we started the new lesson. Right. With my second group, I did move slower. We went over some of the homework from last night. They were having a bit more struggles with comparing fractions. Then we started the new lesson on area. So for myself, it's looking a bit different than application problem fluency, concept development. It's looking like, let's spiral, let's discuss, let's review, let's go over this again. Now new lesson, and then from there. Yesterday, I did switch it up with putting in the application problem because it was relevant to our review. Mm-hmm. So it's fluctuating just based on the season.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And mine's moving a lot like that as well in math. It's just whereas she's reviewing, I've reviewed as well, and they take home the review sheets where it's equivalent fractions or whatever, but I've noticed that my higher group needs more support, and they think differently than the other group does. So they're having more struggles in some areas than the other group is, whereas they're catching on immediately. So we had to go a bit more hands-on today and put it on the number line, lay it out, and then let them see it and color code it. Whereas the second group could just tell me what the equivalent fractions were. And I was really shocked by that, being that the second group's the low group and the first group's the high group. But they think differently. So I had to think differently and plan differently for them. But we are spiraling with that, and then we're, pacing and doing what we got to do to stay on task.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else want to share out about create a sense of urgency, what they may be doing or what may be a struggle for them in their classroom?
I use a timer and I use a countdown. Whenever we're moving from place to place, I make sure to count down so we can get those transitions quick to the next part of the lesson.
And it actually talks about transitions in the article too, so that's perfect. And the note that I made about the timer, it's to pick up the pace, but I also watched a video, and it's holding the students accountable and setting an expectation. So they don't have time to like when creating when completing an assignment, that's what I'm trying to say. They know that, okay, I only have 5 minutes. And so they're gonna work knowing that expectation has been set, as opposed to, let's work and let's just see if you need more time tomorrow, we may, it just, the pace will look different with those expectations in place. And the other thing about urgency, we know at this time of the school year, every second counts. So we need to be intentional and deliberate about everything we're doing with our class. And just go ahead.
I just want to piggyback on what's been said so far, in that I find that at the beginning of the first semester, I didn't assign as much homework because I really want everything done in school so that they can just have family time. And then as we move along, things start to be more writing and more, reading. So the amount of work that gets done and needs to be completed has increased. So I still do the same things with the timer, but rather than just stressing out or getting bogged down in my lesson, I'm like, okay, so you have 10 minutes for this. If you don't get it done, then it's for homework.
Right.
Okay. And then if I see, okay, like in today's lesson, we had a couple of little papers that didn't get finished. Okay, well that was enough for homework. So then I said this extra thing, which I really wanted to do, we're going to do that as bell work in the morning. And I try to tell them that so they know, okay, I better have this done. It's going to be turned in for a grade. And so that's how I'm able to keep my pacing kind of moving, because it's so easy to get bogged down.
It is.
Yeah.
And I've noticed, just to add one last thing, that if my kids can see the timer on the board, they're more likely to lag around because they wait around for that last minute. So I've gone to where I set a timer on my watch, and then when they hear it beep, they know it's done. And I give them that 1 minute warning, that 2 minute warning, because I've noticed if they can actually sit there and count down to it, they don't work with urgency. They just kind of like, oh, well, I still have time. It's no big deal.
Alright, so number 2 is make goals clear. Ms. Cashier, will you read number 2 for us?
One way to avoid a clunky lesson pace is to make sure the learners know exactly what they are learning and doing for the day. Our mission today is to discover. We will be doing this by keep students focused as you transition from one learning activity to another, announcing how much closer they are to accomplishing the day's goal.
I thought with making goals clear, making sure that we kind of have our board done, making sure we have our objectives on the board so that the students know what they're learning. I also think that, the agendas are very important because we notice the teachers that do have the agendas on the board, they're able to go through their lesson, check off what they're doing as they're going through the lesson. Also, I think our Tier 1 curriculum does a really great job with offering those PowerPoints to kind of keep us structured as well. As you two were saying, that it looks different now because we are getting closer to testing, but as long as we're getting the needs of our students met, I think that's a great thing. Would anybody else want to share anything on make goals clear, or we'll just move to the next?
The agenda.
The agenda's good.
Right.
Yeah.
And with the objective, I know in the classroom, a lot of times students, you may find yourself veering off a little bit, but remembering always what your goal of the lesson is and the objective, just as a teacher, helps you kind of steer it back to what you want your students to do.
And sometimes when I have it written on the board, if I see we're doing that, getting off lesson, I have to say, okay guys, what is our goal today? And then they repeat the objective, I say, you say, we do it together with each other. That way they know, okay, wait, stop, we've gotten off track, we gotta get back to where we need to be.
Exactly. The third one is have smooth transitions. I think all of us as seasoned teachers know the importance of having those transitions to keep up the pacing. So we'll skip that one. To be sure materials are ready.
That's a big one.
Ms. Webb?
All right. Be sure materials are ready. Doing this will let you keep the flow going. Have handouts, markers, scissors, and construction paper all in place. Many teachers create small supply containers of materials that include glue sticks, scissors, highlighters, sticky notes, etc., and place it in the center of each collection of desks or team table. Each group can elect a supplies captain who keeps inventory and rounds up contents at the end of class time. Photocopying can be the bane of the teacher's day. I like that. Do you really need to have the quiz or the writing prompt on individual copy paper? Can it be displayed on the projector screen instead? Can there be just one copy on the group table for all to look at? No. Less passing out and collecting saves time and keeps the focus on the task at hand. All right.
And this is talking about materials, but I also think it goes for your questioning and your just having those math problems already worked out and just being prepared in that way.
I agree. I think the reason
feel like
we,
I live in the Kaplan School.
and I think the reason we do that is because we teach our kids to write all over it.
Oh, I think,
Absolutely.
I
To
really
annotate
definitely
everything,
think that having, and with this, I do agree that having those,
You're trying to
paper
train
to-
them
yes,
to do
for
that.
sure.
Oh, and having the math, so they just tear a sheet out is such a lifesaver than
Isn't
having
it?
to go and copy everything.
Oh, right.
You know, like we were doing years
Right,
ago.
yes.
Yes,
We
yes.
are doing
And
that.
the less passing out and collecting saves time. I know for my AB grouping, I have one from each homeroom. You pick up your homeroom, you pick up your homeroom, and it's done in like 5 seconds. Make sure there's a name on it, and it's been a lifesaver.
And even with the interactive notebooks, having them put those
Oh,
application
yeah.
problems in the notebooks, that's less passing out, less
Mhm.
paper.
We should do that on Monday.
It's like a little student portfolio. Okay, present instructions visually. Ms. Taylor?
This helps keep that pace uninterrupted. For each set of instructions, write them ahead of time on the board or have a slide in your PowerPoint or
Prezi, it's
If a new
online,
one.
yeah.
If you are relying on giving oral directions only, think of those students that have poor listening skills.
Yes.
What are we doing again? What do we do after this?
I'm sorry.
Because you've heard it
What
right.
page?
The energy and time you take to make the instructions visible will pay off.
Amen.
And I want to say, when I see number 5, I immediately think about the anchor charts and just making sure that they're done and posted, or you can do them with the students as you're leading through the lesson. And so, and then you can talk through it. So what are we doing, and what am I doing at this step? So they get to visually see it. And then our goal is for them to be independent learners. So that helps them to be independent learners.
And going with what Ms. Webb said, it's funny because at the beginning of the year, they're always like, what page? But then when they see it's written on the agenda, I now have students saying, why are you bothering the teacher asking her that? It's written on the board.
Yeah,
so
they're
they're training
redirecting
themselves. Right.
I was
other
gonna
people.
say, consistency is key.
Yes,
So if
it
your
is.
do now is written every morning, they know you walk in, there's no questions, they have their agenda posted, everything is there.
Alright.
Okay, Ms. Boudreaux, check for understanding.
Taking time to see where your students are during the lesson and adjusting accordingly means formative assessments play a key role in pacing. Pair and share creates energy in the room following direct instruction. Keep it in short spurts, breaking up every 5 to 7 minutes of new information with turn and talk with your elbow partner. Walk around the room and listen in to gauge understanding. These pauses for students to talk with each other can be as brief as 45 seconds. Also use nonverbal quickies like thumbs up, thumbs down to see where students are and assess if more time or reteaching is needed.
Any thoughts?
Thoughts behind this? I saw some writing going on. Any thoughts?
We use a lot of that
The
already
importance
between
of
Ms. Cascio and I.
attendance.
I mean, my own kid even comes home and is like doing this, and my husband's asking, "What is that?" I'm like, "It means he agrees with you."
And then I can remember, like, as a teacher, we would already have to have it planned out. You remember, like, we used to have to put the sticky in the notebook when we were gonna, in the teacher's manual when we were gonna ask this question,
right.
or so having it already planned out.
And we know that research supports the attention span of students. It's not very long. And so giving them those time to process. You're given direct instruction. You need to give them time to turn and talk or process what you've just said. Okay,
I'm ready for number
Ms.
7.
Foley? Sure.
Choose the most effective type of teaching. How will I get this new information to my students? Teachers must ask themselves this question continually when lesson planning. Sometimes new information is so new that students need to first see a visual representation and then require some information directly from their teacher to think about. Other times, it's best to set up a situation connecting to student schema and then group work to follow. Deciding the instructional mode, direct, student-centered, or facilitation, can be as important as choosing the content. When that pacing seems off, is it time to switch the mode of delivery? Do they need a mini lecture to clarify some misconceptions? Might a re-energizing activity be necessary, like a choral reading or class A to Z lineup? Use a variety of activities with different formats to keep that flow and rhythm in the room. How do you set up lessons so they flow? What pacing tips might you like to offer up that work well with your students?
Now, you guys do a really great job of this, so I really want y'all to share out on just what you do to make your learning, make it most effective.
I think it all turns down to doing what your kids need. I know that I didn't realize how important that was until we tried to group together our ability groupings, Ms. Boley and I. And that first day, we both looked at each other and were like, okay, my kids know what to do for me, and her kids know what to do for her, and we both have 2 different teaching styles, but they both are getting the same content and standards and curriculum. They're just getting it in different ways. So it's being able to know that if I'm energized, they're energized. If I'm lagging behind or not prepared, they're lagging behind and not prepared. And they see that and they feed off of me. So if I'm not at my best, they're not at their best. And that's how I try to, despite whatever's going on, I try to stay upbeat and encourage them and relate it to things that might be going on to get them back on pace and telling them, they don't just quit at football games. They keep going. They just don't say at the second quarter, hey, I'm losing, and walk out.
I think keeping in mind everybody's learning style is a big key. I know that my class with my ELLs is going to be different from my children that are native English speakers. So maybe I don't have to do as much TPR or as much introduction to vocabulary, or the group work can look different. But if my first class knows that for the application problem, they're the teacher and I get to sit at the table, and then they get to ask each other for help or to feed off each other. They get a chance to talk and they get a chance to teach each other. And Zion did a great example. I wish I could remember the question for that. When he saw a student present their work this morning. Then they know for concept development, okay, Ms. Bowley is going to be showing us to do something. And then, before when we had small groups or the classes were a little bit different, they knew I move around to the computer now. And then I go do independent work with problem set. So I think that keeping in mind when they need to move and the needs of your students, like Lauren said, really helps you to choose your most effective mode of delivery.
And what works one day might not work the next. You just got to play it by ear. You got to see what's going on. You might have a change to your daily routine or schedule, so you kind of have to adjust. Like all hands on deck, you have to adjust how you're going to deliver things.
You have to be an actor.
Yeah, I mean, you really do.
You do. You do. You have to have that energy and just. Also, too, I thought about when they were talking a bit about the visual representation, again, the anchor charts, and also being able to provide them with multiple examples and ways and strategies of doing things. That helps out as well. The teacher model and think aloud. What is that? Going through the process of what you need to be thinking as you're working through the problems for the students. I think that's effective as well.
And just to say too, with you guys have been talking about the spiraling of skills now that we're preparing for testing, and so what do you do if they didn't get it the first time? How do you change that and make it different so that they see it in a different way in hopes to master it the next time? All some things to think about with that.
I just pretend like I don't know it, and I make a mistake on purpose, and a lot of the kids are like, no, don't do it that way, it goes this way, and it helps me know that they understand and they correct me, and then they feel like they've won something because I beat my teacher. Like, I knew more than my teacher did.
Or even showing a visual representation and knowing that that's not enough, they need to touch it.
Yes.
So if I introduce fractions and they still can't figure out the part that's shaded or not shaded, then we need to take out blocks, or we need to do Skittles, or we need to do Play-Doh.
Right.
And give them another way to.
And that made the difference.
Yeah.
So you guys, ELA Social Studies, hearing impaired, what are you guys doing to kind of readjust and make sure that you are choosing the most effective type of teaching? If the kids don't get it, what are you doing to make sure that they get it?
I think ELAs in math are very different because ELA is a progression. It's like you really are doing the same thing through the year, just trying to get it to a better place, and get them more skilled at maybe something like AB type questions,
right,
or writing. But you're building and moving through the year. You're not introducing brand new skills day after, like I felt like in math every day.
Yep.
You're doing a new skill because either you're building on the one before, or starting something new. But ELA, I think, is just trying to perfect their technique, their writing, or their ability to select answer AB type questions.
I like to present a different way than what they do in the classroom to the kids when I pull them out. We're not going to just keep doing the same thing they've already seen. Trying to make it, I don't want to say more fun, because I'm sure you guys do fun things in the classroom too.
All right, Ms.
Put that in the minutes.
I love doing, like, going into Pinterest and finding different ways
Right.
to present the same skill. And
Same
making
here.
it, maybe pull out a game or something that they like. Like we were doing Connect 4 on how learning our math facts with the girls I pulled from 3rd grade. So
Like we're doing a
their
leopard fun activity
yeah.
for math.
So just different ways to make it fun, but they're still learning.
Yeah.
And presenting different ways than what they might see in the classroom.
Okay, great.
And I know at Science and Social Studies, I really like that they're starting to introduce more text features. So I know Ms. Cascio and I have been talking about, Ms. Webb pointed out how great those little books are with the
Aren't they
different
great?
text features and stuff. And she even went so far to find out that they're in the AR book log and has been able to send us what grade level they are and how many points they're worth and things like that. So she went through the kit and did that. So that gives us that opportunity that we can tell our kids, okay, hey, if you go back and read this book, it's got the captions, it's got the glossary, it's got all the materials that you're covering and reading, but guess what? You're seeing it in science too. So it brings all that stuff together.
And that's a wrap, friends.
That's right. Any final thoughts?
And of course, if
This
there's
is a
ever,
nice little review.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you forget, it's like, oh yeah.
well, you know, at this time of year, we're also focused on test prep,
Test,
prep,
right.
yeah, but yeah, how we can keep our students engaged.
All right, thank you guys so
Thanks.
much, third grade. Thank you.